Discussing Oneg Shabbos. Oneg Shabbos, and hopefully we'll get some clarity in how does Hashem's credit card work. That's what we're trying to figure out. Says the Heilige Rambam. We're going to go through, just so we see some of the Mekayres inside. We're going to do it fast so that we could cover ground. Says the Rambam, we have a mitzvah la'anigis Shabbos. We learn it out from Zachar v'Shamash, and it's partial adi neviim kavod v'oineg. Some say it's midaraisa, some say it's midivrei seifrim. Comes on the Mishnah Berurah as we begin Rishman Beis. Mishnah Berurah says ikar mitzvahs oineg Shabbos partial adi neviim karas l'Shabbos oineg. Some say the ikaroi is midaraisa, and he concludes in this Mishnah Berurah Mikra Kodesh Pirush Chazal b'Sifra lechabod bechsos nikiyah, clean clothing, ula angoi ba'oineg achila ushtiya. Clean clothing and good food and drink. Comes on the Shartzion. The Shartzion writes, "Afilu lididhu zarch lizar ma'id bazaz." Talking about an ani shechamura midivrei sefer and yosim midivrei Torah. So comes along the Shartzion and says, "Don't think it's only the Rabbanon." No, says the Shartzion. No new news over here. This is very, very serious. Says the Gemara in Shabbos, is a little bit of a chizik. What happens if you're a ma'anigas a Shabbos? You get nachala b'li mitzarim. You get an inheritance that knows no boundaries. Comes on the Beis Yosef, and he says, "Kasa Maria buav denois le'nachla b'li mitzarim humida keneged mida." As much as you spend, shekashem shu mifazer ma'is b'lo shir, you spend without shir on Shabbos. Kain yitz lo nachala b'li shir. Hashem gives you inheritance without any shir. And finally, we have one more Gemara in Shabbos that teaches us hama'anig is a Shabbos. You get Mishali sleep. The difference in the two Gemaras is one is talking about the next world, one is talking about this world. Lamaisa Oneg Shabbos brings within incredible riches. But the problem is, how much can one spend? We'll just parenthetically, or be'oifen akdama, in reality there's no real answer. We're going to see in a moment. A lot of this is going to have to do with your level of bitachin, as we're going to see. But at the end of the day, the Gemara said if you're mafazer ma'isav, then the Maria Buov, then you're going to get it back. So if one believes in it, then he will. But let's understand that for a moment. Comes along the Gemara in Beya. The Gemara in Beya teaches us very famously in Daf Tezvav and Beis, all of one's money is set aside for him for Hashanah until Yom Kippur. Rashi says, "Kol ma'ashatz l'shtaker b'shana she'inazin misham katzav lei kach v'kach yishtaker b'shana zu v'yesh l'lizayim l'asas yisim aruba." Says Rashi, a very time-sensitive message of Rashi. God gave you, 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand. Be careful. If you spend too much, you spend 2 months, the first 6 months of the year, the last 6 months of the year, you run out of it. It's not like, God just says, we'll refill you. Don't spend too much. Chotz, says the Gemara, Moitzas, Shabbos, Voitzas, Yom Tiv. Very important, especially in a world of tuition. Voitzas, Banov, Talmud Torah. That's also included. Shem Pachas, if you're stingy, Pachas in life. You get less, which is a strong term. One would think, okay, if I spend more, God gives me extra. No, not just if you spend more. If you spend less. I can't afford it, so, Shabbos, I won't have fleishiks. I'll have tuna fish and an egg salad Friday night and nothing else. Hashem's going to give you less. But in Hoisif, then Moisifulos. There's a Rashi. This Rashi in Be'ez, as we're going to see in a moment, is brought down lahalacha by the Mishnah Berurah. And l'chayr, this Rashi is the answer to all our questions. And obviously, how do you learn the Rashi is the $1 million kasha. But says Rashi, chutz meid sa'as. Can I get a liquid, as Rav Yossi would say? Thank you. Chutz meid Sfarim, I don't want to ask for. Getting nervous. Although Beya l'chayr is not so difficult. Chutz meid sa'as Shabbosis. Oisa loy pasku loy mashi ishtaker l'tzricha mehecha tvuau. Where does it come from? Ella lefima sherogil mamsim loy l'shol achashol. What does Rashi mean? Fima sherogil. That's what you're going to get. We're talking about that if you spend aside for the expenses of Shabbos and Yantif, that which you're ruggle. What does that mean? Thank you very much. Bracha. I don't have to make a bracha. I already made 20th drink. What does Rashi mean? What does Rashi mean? Comes along the Marsha. And we're going to come back to this Rashi in a moment. Comes on the Marsha as we turn over the page. Says the Marsha, Me'atam shemefazer besuda Shabbos b'shem shu mitzvah al Oneg. Says the Marsha, Marsha, again, another timely message from the Marsha. All the pleasures of the world, all the Gashmias is not for during the week, it's for Shabbos. What does it mean it gives you Mishalas Libay? If you're Mafazer, Besuda Shabbos, mitzvah alaynik. Why are you allowed to be Mafazer? Which again, is giving us a little bit of an insight. You're not just Mafazer, you don't just spend money on Shabbos because, it's a popularity contest and you want to show off your $500 bottle of whatever it is. No, you're doing it for Shabbos, which is a critical ingredient, which probably is what Rashi is teaching us also, and probably is what's going on here with Bitachon. To spend money and blame it on Shabbos and say God's going to pay you back, that does not work. It doesn't work. Oh, I'm going to make a kiddush to blow out the world. Oh, but it's Shabbos. Oh, I'm going to get paid back. No, you won't. Because that kiddush had nothing to do with Shabbos. Happened to me, it was on Shabbos. It was one big fat with a P and an FH. That was what? That was just for whatever. And that has nothing to do with Shabbos. So that you won't get paid back for, says the Marsha. It's only if you're doing it mitzvah alaynik, which, by the way, didn't limit it in one bit. It just limited your mindset when you're doing it. And Ayin in Rishim Shabigis the Shabbos Malkasa, maybe at the end we'll explain it one step deeper. But I want to make sure we get there. Comes along the Mishnah Berurah, comes along the Aruch HaShulchan, and they explain as follows: Kedei lachabod haShabbat, the mezayne shel Shabbos v'yantif are not part of your yearly salary. Im ma'isif and loy. Kumay Amar Chazal, kom zayne shel adu ksuvim l'Rosh Hashanah. So the diak that some want to make is what does the Shartzion say? We quote it over here. Sivkatim Yigimel Shartzion says Rashi. That's the word that the Shartzion says. Now, the words that the Mishnah Berurah quoted were not Rashi. Those are the words of the Gemara, right? The Gemara said Shepachas b'chizim lo'ivim ma'isivim lo'y, and the Gemara said So what is the Shartzion pointing to by saying the Chilik Gimel we can handle, or look at that, it's right there. What's the Shartzion adding? L'chayr, he's pointing to the pshat of Rashi, like we said, that it's mamsiyim lo. It has to be within your world. Comes in the Aruch HaShulchan. The Aruch HaShulchan says, he says it, mamish the same thing. Shemichin atzmoi lachilasai v'yarbe b'basar. Thank you very much. B'basar v'yayin umigdanot, delicacies. Kifi yechoy lasai. Kifi yechoy lasai. She is skavin rak lekovit Shabbos. Shulchan is telling us what pshat is. Shulchan is telling us, number one, it has to be skavin lekovit Shabbos. Very important. Number two is that it has to be kifi yechoy lasai. Now, but this is a stira, right? On one hand, they're saying add on. On the other hand, they're saying kifi yechoy lasai. So, how exactly does this work? How exactly does this work? Yeah, the Shartzion just says one word, Rashi. Then he says, I've understood around and people come to Gezela for Shabbos. Comes along Rav Aaron Leib Shaiman. Comes along the Heilige Rebbe and he says, Ad kama magas b'chiyavsai shel avrich l'anig is Shabbos begeder lava live ani pareya. How much can you put on Hashem's tap? Says Rav Aaron Leib, avrich lem b'chiyav lachol davka shar shalim. You don't have to have flesh, meat. Hagamara Omeres afilu Rashi Taradin v'kisi darsam zelimim she'in loy avol im yesh loy usarch lavi yosers. They asked him further. V'im ledugma hu koine basar bakar v'hu chayshiv zeh b'shvil Shabbos. You buy meat and you think it's for Shabbos. B'shvil HaKadosh Baruch Hu muter loy. Answers Varan Leib. Adam ragel kamaisai oichel chaticha dog oich chaticha basar v'day b'zeh. Im echad yikach lamashal as ha'echel ha'chi yakar. He buys the most expensive item. Zeloi nechlal bichlal avu alay v'ani peireya. Why v'chi that? Does he need this? Hulam yechuyav chatichas dog v'chatichas basar zeh normally within the norm of the world. V'shul zehu yachol lahashlech Yehavah yalai kadosh baruch hu. So what's going on over here is that l'chayra? And I say l'chayra, yeah, it's very vague. It's vague, and the reason why I bring down Rav Aaron Leib is because someone needs to teach us how to learn over here. Because on one hand, you could be a...
So what's like the I'll pay you back. If you're doing this,
Oh.
if it wasn't Shabbos, I would buy
Oh.
this for myself.
So what's shot? What has to be is there has to be a level that... Right. Moist but normal. What does moist but normal mean? Very simple. Is that such a shvar?
What you do for a special supper on Tuesday night?
Basically.
Your in-laws are coming.
Right, meaning moist but normal means really... Let's just go and really, could I afford to buy meat for Shabbos? I can't really afford it. If I were to crunch every number and everything, Lamaisa spending the extra $25 a week really isn't part of whatever. But to push for $25, that I could do. Could I really afford to buy a bottle of wine? Not really. To push for a bottle of wine, I could do. Wait, once I'm pushing, so now let me go buy the most expensive meat for $250. And let me go buy the most expensive wine. Let me go buy the most expensive scotch. Because if Hashem's paying me back in the world of Hashem, what's the chiluk between $25 and $250? Says the Paiskim, that you can't do. That's too much. L'chayra, what's going on over here is that, so l'chayra, good. So l'chayra, there's a reason why everyone is saying over here that, because the question is it l'chavet Shabbos? Look at the next Mar Makam, the Gain. Comes on the Gain. Look at the Gain. The Gain says, the Oneg Shabbos HaMeichel Mishteh. Yes. Good. Yeah, for sure. And it's very sensible. Look at the Gain. The Gain says, "La'anig Shabbos HaMeichel Mishteh l'chavet chesas nekiya. Sheyei kavanasai l'shem Shabbos." Not for your hana. So what does that mean? That means if I push myself a little bit, I'm pushing myself a little bit for Shabbos. If I go and I buy it's not for Shabbos anymore. That's for yourself. Now, and with this will conclude. And I think Pshat is that, first of all, Stam is a nice Shulchan Aruch Rav over here that seemed to dog muchi of gomer midaraisa. Pump up the fish. It says the grass. Then he says it's tamua. He doesn't like it, and seder. The l'chayra the vart is that what does it mean that HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays you back? What does it mean using Hashem's credit card? What does it mean? Again, I'm going to explain this on a very simple level. And the truth is, I gave this over one time in a shir, and a very chashavit came over afterwards screaming, and I said to him, "You're right and I'm right." And let me. It's not me. This is how we'll go over on late, right? He says that normally. I think Pshat is as follows. Pshat is when we say it's on Hashem's credit card, it is, and you have to believe it. And if you believe it, then it works. That's how all Emunah Bitachon goes. As much as you believe, it's going to work. If you are a tzaddik and you really believe that this is bringing Shabbos kavod by spending not $20, $200, and Hashem will pay you back, then ain't achanami. Because in the eyes of God, there is no difference between $20 and $200. But if you are a normal person like myself, that I could understand that, I'm going to push a little bit for Shabbos. But in my world, when I go crazy, it's no more for Shabbos, just because I'm just being honest. And if I'm being honest, and I'm saying, that's not really Shabbos, that's just, Once I know someone else is paying, then let's just break the bank. You go out to eat, and you know that someone has Tati's credit card, and Tati's never going to see the bill, so let's just go crazy. But you know that that's not normal. So, similarly when it comes over here, if you believe, and it's within your world, what do you mean? I have emunah bitachon. I live a life in utter bliss and harmony, like the Chavis Lav says. Then ein achanami. Then you're right. You go. You know what that person does? He shops without any cheshbon to money. He just shops because he knows Hashem's going to pay him. But if not, if you do that, and then the next month you're like, oh my gosh, how do I pay my bills? And you start having a nervous breakdown. What happens to your emunah bitachon? Why are you having a nervous breakdown? You believe in Hashem, don't you? Well, I believe in Him, but I have to see it. Oh, so now you have all your sifkatans with God, how He has to run His world. So then you just have to be honest. Now, I think the guy that came over to yell at me, and he said to me, "What do you mean? You shop for Shabbos, you don't look at prices." The guy's in his 50s, and he's been doing this for the last 30 years. And he's like, this is what I do for 30 years, and I never had a problem. I said, you're right. In your world of bitachon, if you could do that, in a chanami, and it's true. It could be one could train himself, and it could be it's not even the craziest level. And it could be, you're right, it could be if you're going and you want to buy an item, and there's two items in front of you, and one's this and one's this. It could be if you say, you know what, it's for Shabbos, I'm going to spend, and it's going to come back. It works. And the truth is, countless stories have been told of people who do that, and it does work. So it should bolster our emunah and bitachon, and we should be able to say it. And if you could say it with absolute conviction, then ain't achanami. But if you can't, and you're sort of just not being honest, and you're blaming Hashem, Hashem knows the emes. That's the problem over here. So you just have to be honest with yourself and what it is. I'll finish in 60 seconds or less. Shimshon Pincus asked a very pasha kasha. Why are we having a nice Sudan Shabbos? It's the day of Shabbos. It's the day of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So sit and learn Torah. Sit and daven. It's the day of Shabbos. Open. Have a good steak. Hashem wants your steak. What are you doing? He asked the kasha, very basic kasha in Hakdam with the Shabbos Malkasa. And he explains very simply. If you're invited to a Suda by, we'll use Rav Chaim Kanievsky. You're invited to Suda, you sit down, you're sitting at the meal, and Rav Chaim serves you a piece of chicken. You say, Rebbe, I'm working on my precious right now. Rebbe, I'm going to learn a daf Gemara. I gave you a piece of chicken. I want to eat with you. I'm dining with you. When you want to eat with someone, then you want them to eat with you. Shabbos is the day of Menucha. Hashem wants Kaviyachal. He's inviting us to his table. He wants to eat with us. So what does he want us to do? Eat with him. And therefore the food itself is elevated, and therefore it is a real thing to have better food and more geschmack food and better wine and more for Shabbos, because that's what Hashem wants. The king himself is dining with us. Of course, he wants it to be done appropriately. And of course, if it's done with Lashon Hara, then Hashem says, you utter fool, what are you doing? You're using my credit card to pay for the meal that you're going to be sitting there and spitting in my face, like Talmud Devar says, right? As he's charging the battery, what are we doing? We're busy unplugging it. Like, it makes no sense. So it's true. But when it comes to Lamaisa, of course, we could spend more, one should spend more, and probably the avoida is to do it in stages, as in all avoidas are. Is you push a little bit, and you see, hey, look at that. I don't know how that worked, but it worked. And then you push a little more, you say, hey, and then you're right, halavai, we should all get to the level that Shabbos is, you just go and you buy what you want for Shabbos, like Kavod Shabbos. Oh, Avada. And then, of course, and then it will work. Siyata Dishmaya.